"Sit by the kitchen door," the bride said to me, her smile sweet but sharp as a knife. The music swelled behind her, violins and a soft jazz band filling the hall while guests laughed and raised their champagne flutes. The chandeliers cast golden light over sequined dresses and pressed tuxedos. Every corner shimmered like it had been polished for a magazine spread. But in that moment, the room turned cold. I was wearing the navy dress I had saved for months to buy, the finest thing I owned. In my hands rested a perfectly wrapped white box tied with silver ribbon. My name is Vivian Clark. I am 59 years old, a widow, and the mother of Ethan Clark, the groom standing across the room, oblivious to the humiliation happening at his own wedding. And the woman who had just spoken to me with that cutting sweetness was Melissa Carter, my new daughter-in-law. She leaned close, whispering so others would not hear, but making sure her words sliced through me. She told me to sit by the kitchen door, away from the photographs, so that my age, my lines, my presence would not spoil the picture-perfect images she wanted for her social media. The smile never left her face. Around the table, I felt the silence drop like a stone. A fork paused mid-air. Someone cleared their throat and looked away. Only Ruth, Ethan's godmother and my oldest friend, met my eyes. Her expression was a mix of outrage and pity. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but I gave a small shake of my head. I didn't need her to fight this battle. Not here, not like this. So I smiled, not with joy, but with something steadier. I rose from my chair, reached for the white box on the gift table, and held it firmly to my chest. I walked past the head table where my son was laughing at a joke from his best man. He didn't even glance my way. He didn't notice his mother leaving his wedding. He didn't see the tremor in my hands or the steadiness in my step. Step by step, I crossed the shining marble floor, the heels of my shoes tapping out a rhythm of quiet defiance. Guests turned their heads, whispers rising like a tide. But I didn't falter. I pushed through the doors and felt the cool evening air wash over me. And here's the truth no one in that ballroom knew. Inside that white box was not just any wedding present. It held the deed to a penthouse worth $3.1 million and a check for $4 million more. That had been my gift to my only son and his new wife. Until that moment, when I decided to keep it for myself. The phones have not stopped ringing since. If you are watching this, make sure to subscribe, tap the bell, and share where you are listening from. Because this is not just a story about a rude comment at a wedding. This is about dignity, sacrifice, and what happens when a mother who has given everything finally decides to take something back for herself. I am Vivian Clark. And this is how, at my son's wedding, I smiled, took my gift, and walked out. I live in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint on the ceiling and a radiator that clanks at night like it is complaining about its own age. My kitchen is so small I can stretch my arms and almost touch both walls. Dinner most nights has been instant noodles or soup from a can, whatever I can buy with the loose change I count from my Social Security check. I write each expense in a small notebook because if I do not, I will come up short before the end of the month. There have been days when I stood at the grocery counter, coins spread out on the counter, cheeks burning because I was not sure if I had enough for bread and milk. That is what my life became after Harold died. In the corner of the living room sits the only thing of his I could not part with, his old wooden chair. It is scratched on the arms and the cushion has gone flat, but to me, it is the anchor of everything I once had. When I sit there, I can still smell the faint trace of his cologne, as if the fabric remembered him better than anyone else did. That chair is where I sit when the apartment feels too empty. It is where I talk to him when I cannot sleep. It is where I keep myself from forgetting that once upon a time, I was part of a family, not just a woman scraping by. Sometimes when I close my eyes in that chair, I see Ethan as a boy. I remember one winter night when he was 8 and burning with fever. His small body shook as he called out for me in the dark. I pressed a cool cloth against his forehead hour after hour, whispering over and over, "Mom's here. Don't leave me." His tiny hand clung to mine with all the strength he had. That memory stays sharp because of what happened at his wedding. Because the same boy who once begged me not to leave him let me walk out in silence while his bride told me to sit by the kitchen door. The contrast is a knife I still feel twisting. The truth is, I bought that lottery ticket out of stubbornness, almost out of anger. I was at the bodega down the street, my hands wrapped around 5 crumpled dollars. The clerk mentioned the jackpot was up to 62 million. I laughed bitterly because that kind of number was like another planet. I had just finished listening to Melissa brag about her latest designer handbag while I ate the cheapest thing on the menu, and I thought to myself, why not waste $5 the way she wastes thousands? I handed the bill over, half in defiance, half in surrender. I put the ticket in my wallet and forgot about it for 2 days. When I watched the drawing on television, I thought there was a mistake. My numbers appeared one after another, lining up like soldiers. 7, 14, 21, 35, 47, Powerball 9. Every single number matched. My hands shook so hard I nearly spilled my tea. I checked again, then again, then again. There was no mistake. In that moment, the woman who counted out coins for milk had become a multi-millionaire. But the first thing I felt was not joy. It was fear. Fear that Ethan and Melissa would find out. Fear that they would see me not as a mother, but as a bank account. Fear that I would lose the last scraps of dignity I was holding on to. So I went to see a lawyer. His name was Delgado, a man in his 50s with tired eyes and a calm voice. He spread the papers across his desk and looked at me over his glasses. "Vivian," he said, "paper is power. If you want to protect yourself, do it with documents. Do not tell anyone. Decide carefully who deserves to know and who deserves to benefit. Money this large can break families apart." I nodded. I already knew he was right. My life had been a series of sacrifices no one remembered. Selling Harold's watch so Ethan could start graduate school. Skipping meals so there was enough to pay for Ethan's books. Years of telling myself that love and loyalty would be repaid in time. But at that wedding, I learned they would not. Still, in that office with Delgado, I made a choice. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I gave Ethan and Melissa the gift of a penthouse and a check, they would see me again. Not as an old woman to be hidden by the kitchen door, but as the mother who had given everything. I left his office with folders of signed documents tucked in my purse, the ink still drying. I told myself this was my chance to mend the cracks, to heal the distance between us. I imagined Ethan's eyes when he opened the white box, Melissa's gasp when she saw the deed. I believed gratitude could grow where selfishness had lived. That was the hope I carried into their wedding day, the hope I carried in that silver-tied box pressed against my chest. I remember the day I first stepped into the penthouse. The elevator doors opened to a private foyer, and the agent guided me through glass doors that revealed a view of the Atlantic stretched endlessly toward the horizon. I walked out onto the balcony, and the wind hit me with the salty smell of the ocean. My hair blew across my face, and I gripped the railing, almost dizzy with the thought that this place could be mine. The floor beneath my feet was smooth stone, the kind I had only seen in magazines. The water shimmered below like it was waiting to carry me away from everything I had endured. I closed my eyes and imagined Ethan standing there, keys in his hand, laughing like he did as a boy when he opened presents on Christmas morning. I saw Melissa's mouth fall open in astonishment, maybe even gratitude softening her carefully painted smile. For one fragile moment, I convinced myself that a deed worth over $3 million could buy me back the respect I had lost. I wanted to give them a future so beautiful it would remind them of the mother who had fought for theirs. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table with the paperwork spread out before me. I signed my name with a trembling hand, then slid the property deed into an envelope. At the bank, I instructed the manager to issue a cashier's check for $4 million. He looked at me like he wasn't sure I understood the number. "Are you certain?" he asked. I told him I was absolutely certain. When the check was ready, I placed it carefully inside a velvet sleeve. Both the deed and the check went into a white gift box, tied with a silver ribbon I bought from the craft store. I pressed the lid down, almost reverent, as if sealing in not just money, but a prayer. That box sat on the counter for 2 weeks. Every morning, when I boiled water for tea, my eyes landed on it. It reminded me of the hope I was still carrying, that one day soon, gratitude would return to me in the form of my son's voice. During those same weeks, I starved myself in small, hidden ways so that the wedding could shine. I wrote checks for flowers, for catering, for the photographer. I gave up meat and fruit, telling myself soup was enough. I skipped bus fare and walked across town to save a few dollars. Each payment was a sacrifice I justified with the image of Ethan's face lighting up when he discovered my gift. Meanwhile, Melissa was busy showing off her newest handbags at brunch. I saw the pictures on social media. She posed in mirrored sunglasses, her hand resting casually on a purse that cost more than 3 months of my rent. Her caption read, "Hard work pays off," though I never saw her work a day as hard as I had. At the very same moment she was flaunting her luxury, I was at home counting coins to see if I could afford eggs. Still, I kept going. I ordered a modest dress for myself, nothing like the gowns Melissa wore, but one I could at least feel presentable in. I rehearsed the moment when they would open my box in front of everyone. I imagined the silence falling as the deed unfolded, the gasp rising in the crowd, Ethan embracing me in front of the family. It was a dream stitched together from every penny I spent, every meal I skipped, every corner I cut to make their wedding shine brighter than my own life ever had. And even as doubt whispered in the quiet hours of the night, I held on. I sat in Harold's old chair, looking at that silver ribbon glinting in the dim light, and told myself this was the bridge back to my son. This was the gift that would make him see me not as an old woman living on Social Security, but as the mother who had always been there. I convinced myself that this one act, this one extravagant gesture, would heal everything. I woke before dawn on the wedding day, the city still quiet. The air outside my window, the pale blue of a new beginning. I ironed my navy dress with careful strokes, pressed the seams the way Harold taught me when we were young and saving every dollar. I pinned my hair back, simple and neat. My hands shook once, then steadied. I slipped my feet into low heels and set the white gift box on my lap. The silver ribbon gleamed. The church was filled long before the procession. Stained glass threw squares of color over the aisle. The organ swelled. The air smelled faintly of lilies and polished wood. Friends and colleagues, cousins and neighbors, faces that had watched Ethan grow from a boy with scraped knees into a man in a tuxedo. I sat near the middle and smoothed the skirt over my knees. When the doors opened and he walked in with the minister, his shoulders straight and his eyes shining, my vision blurred. He looked like Harold in the photograph I keep on the dresser. The same hopeful set of the mouth, the same way of glancing down as if catching emotion before it spills. I thought of the night Harold died, the sterile hospital room, the way I held his hand as the monitors clicked. I remembered signing papers alone, planning a funeral, promising myself that Ethan would still have the life we had dreamed for him. Every sacrifice threaded through that aisle like invisible ribbon. The watch I sold so he could start graduate school. The second job I took. The holidays, I worked while other families gathered. When Melissa entered on her father's arm, the congregation hummed with admiration. Her dress flared. Her makeup was flawless. Her smile belonged on a billboard. Ethan's face opened with awe and something like triumph. I clapped when everyone clapped. I repeated the prayers. The vows were simple and the kiss drew cheers. Even then, I believed there might be room for me. I believed kindness could still fit beside their ambitions. The reception hall was all crystal and gold. A trio played jazz in the corner, and waiters moved like choreography. Trays balanced on palms. I found table 12 toward the back, near an exit and a row of potted palms. Around me sat Aunt Lorraine with her cane and sly humor. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker from our old neighborhood, two elderly cousins I had not seen in years. We traded small stories, and the conversation felt gentle. I could see the head table across the dance floor. Ethan leaned close to his best man, laughing. Melissa glittered beneath the lights, receiving attention as if she had always owned it. I placed the white box beside my plate where I could keep a hand on it without thinking. Dinner arrived, beautifully plated. I ate slowly, tasting more nerves than food. After the toasts, after the first dance, after a swirl of relatives posing for photos, Melissa began moving from table to table, accepting compliments. She reached ours at last. Up close, her beauty was almost fierce. She touched my shoulder lightly, smiling a perfect smile. "Sit by the kitchen door, please." "For the photos," she said. Her tone was gentle. Her eyes were not. I stared at her hand on my shoulder, small and manicured, and felt a familiar coldness crawl up my spine. For a heartbeat, the room kept moving. The trio kept playing. The glasses kept chiming. Then the sound thinned. A fork paused. A whisper skittered across linen. Ruth, Ethan's godmother and my oldest friend, went still, outrage flashing across her face. She drew breath to object. I met her gaze and shook my head once. Not here. Not today. I turned to Melissa and smiled the way you do when you are finished explaining who you are. I rose from my chair. My palms felt the cool weight of the box as I lifted it from the table. I tucked it against my ribs. the way I once tucked Ethan when he was new to the world. I walked past the centerpieces of white roses, past the polished dance floor, past the head table where my son adjusted his cufflink and laughed at a story. He did not look up. He did not see me. A waiter near the entrance reached for the door. I nodded thanks and stepped into the corridor, the carpet swallowing the last of the band. I could smell coffee and something sweet from the kitchen. Life went on with its calm efficiency. Outside, the evening air was cool. I stood on the curb until a taxi pulled over. The driver glanced at me in the mirror and at the box in my lap. "Are you okay, ma'am?" he asked. "I am better than I have been in years," I said. As the car merged into traffic, the lights of the venue receded. I rested my cheek briefly against the box and felt something settle into place. Not anger, not bitterness. Resolve. By the time we reached my building, I understood what had changed. I had stepped out of a role I had worn for decades. I had left the table where I was expected to sit and be grateful for crumbs. This was my act break. The moment the accommodating mother ended, and the woman with boundaries began. The phone rang at 2 a.m, the hour that peels sleep from the eyes. I woke in Harold's old chair, with a blanket around my shoulders, and the white gift box on the coffee table, its silver ribbon catching the light from the street. Ethan's name filled the screen. I let it ring twice, felt that old reflex to rescue, then answered. "Mom, Melissa says you were upset. Are you okay?" His voice was careful, like he was stepping around a spill. I looked at the box. I could almost see the outline of the deed and the velvet sleeve inside. In the black glass of the phone, my face floated back at me, lined and steady. "I am exactly where I need to be," I said. There was a breath, a small click, the sound of a television far away. "Mom, what happened? Did someone say something?" I glanced at the empty chair across from me. I pictured the kitchen door, the sparkle of chandeliers on polished floors, Melissa's hand on my shoulder as if moving a vase. A lifetime of explaining rose in my throat. I swallowed it. "Good night, Ethan," I said, and I ended the call. The apartment listened. A pipe ticked. I pulled the blanket close and let quiet cover me like warm water. The phone lit again. Ethan, then unknown, then Melissa. I turned the ringer off and set the phone face down. The glow faded. The ribbon kept its sheen. I filled the kettle and waited for the thin whistle. Mug, teabag, kettle, pour. Steam rose like a benediction. The phone vibrated against the wood again and again. I did not pick it up. When Ethan was small, he called for me in the dark, and I answered before the second cry. Now the roles had turned. The phone called, and I let it ring, not to punish, but to draw a line. Boundaries are not knives. They are doors with locks. Tonight, I turned the deadbolt. At 3, the call stopped. Minutes later, they began again. A text blinked, then another. "Are you safe? Please respond." Melissa is worried. I set the phone down and breathed. Safe is not the same as comfortable. I was truly safe. The tea cooled. I smoothed the ribbon with my finger. I had tied it gently, imagining it sliding free under my son's hands. I had pictured his eyes when he saw the deed, Melissa's face opening toward gratitude. In that picture, I had erased myself. Tonight, I wrote myself back in. A gift can bless, but not at the price of the giver. At 4, I lay on the couch and watched the window's shadow climb the ceiling. I did not sleep. I did not need to. The silence kept watch. I considered drafting a message that would explain. I considered making it easy for him to understand. Then I remembered the ballroom where my silence had been imposed. This quiet was chosen. Choice alters the taste. Dawn thinned the dark. I brewed another cup and opened the little notebook where I tracked the budget. I wrote a new line between rent and groceries. Respect, due upon receipt. The phone hummed again. I let it hum. At 6, Ruth called. Her name on the screen eased something in my chest. I answered. "Are you all right, Viv?" she said. "More than all right," I told her. "I am learning." She let out a breath that sounded like pride. "Then let them wait." We said little. Old friendship speaks in quiet. I showered and dressed in a plain sweater and sturdy shoes. I set the white box on the shelf and tucked the spare key to the penthouse into the lining of my purse, just to feel its shape and remember my life now held more than one room. I plugged the phone in, turned it on, and walked away. By noon, messages lay in a stack. Some were soft with apology. Some were bright as if nothing had happened. A few had edges. I closed the screen and stood at the sink under cold water. I looked at Harold's chair, at the worn places where our hands had polished the wood. Power is not volume. It is posture. Tonight I changed mine. This was the night my silence learned to speak for me. The phone became a metronome, and my heart kept steadier time. I understood at last that I did not owe immediate answers to people who treated me like a pause in their plans. I owed myself kindness and steadiness. I turned the ringer off and let the room settle like a lake without wind. The ribbon on the box caught noon light and drew a bright line across the lid now. Ruth knocked just after 9 with a paper bag tucked in her elbow and the smell of warm cornbread moving down my hallway. I opened the door. Heat from the loaf rolled over my face. Her eyes flicked to the white gift box on the coffee table, silver ribbon bright as a blade. She said nothing yet. Ruth always lets the person with the bruise speak first. "Come in," I said. "That the good batch. Extra butter, less sugar." She set the bag on the counter and surveyed the room the way nurses do, noticing everything without fuss. "You look steady." "I am trying to be." We sat at the small table. I set out plates and a jar of honey. The chair across from me complained, then settled. She broke the loaf with her hands. Steam rose. We ate without talking. She nodded toward Harold's chair. "You sleep there?" I did. And the phone. It rang until it learned I was not coming. Ruth sipped coffee. "Tell me." I told her about the ballroom, the light, the request to sit by the kitchen door like a misplaced vase. I told her I stood up, took the box, and walked out. Ruth listened like a bridge holds weight. When I finished, she traced a crack in the varnish. "Viv, you have paid the toll for years. You pawned Harold's watch to cover Ethan's first semester. I went with you. I held your hand while the clerk examined the engraving with a loupe, like love was an imperfection. You worked holidays. You gave rides. You wrote checks you could not afford and smiled so he would not see the cost. I stared at the white box. I told myself the gift would heal it. She met my eyes. "Viv, you have given enough. Let them pay their own price." She said it softly, not as punishment, but as release. The words loosened a tightness behind my ribs. I folded a napkin. "If I keep the deed, does that make me hard?" "It makes you honest. Kindness without a boundary is not love. It is erasure." She leaned back. "You taught Ethan to read by tracing words on his palm. Trace a new word now." "No," I laughed once, surprised. "You make it sound easy." "It is not easy. It is adult." She tore another piece of bread and slid the plate toward me. Eat. Strength helps the spine hold. We ate for a while. Ruth moved to practicalities. The trust is set. Delgado filed everything. Title is clean. The deed sits in the trust until I decide otherwise. Good. Paper before. Promises. She nodded toward the phone. You going to call him back? Not today. If he apologizes. I will listen to the apology meant for me, not the money. Ruth smiled. She reached into her bag and drew out a creased photograph from her wallet. Ethan at 8 with a missing tooth, his arm thrown around my waist under a library banner. I kept this because of your face, she said, tired and fierce at once. The same look you have today, I touched the glossy edge. That winter, he begged me not to leave when he had the fever. And you stayed. She pinned the photo under the salt shaker so it would not curl. Now it is his turn to stand where you can see him. If he steps up, you will know. If he does not, that is also an answer. The kettle clicked off. I poured more coffee. Ruth gathered her things but did not rise. I am proud of you. I feel like I am breaking something. You are breaking a pattern. Patterns crack before they heal. We walked to the door. She pressed the bag with the remaining cornbread into my hands. For later, she said. At the threshold, she paused, the way she does when she wants a line to land. Remember the shop with the watch. You cried in the bus shelter and did not want Ethan to know. You said love was supposed to be quiet. Hear me. Quiet can also mean strong. I nodded. The hallway held its breath like it understood the change arriving today. Ruth squeezed my arm. Eat. Rest. If the phone rings, let it. Your silence is speaking. After she left, I stood for a moment with the door open, then closed it gently and slid the chain. The apartment felt less small. I set the cornbread on the counter, placed the photo beside the box, and sat in Harold's chair. The ribbon caught a line of light. My resolve thickened like cooling honey. I did not owe an explanation today. I owed myself breakfast and the courage to keep the lock turned until respect knocked. Delgado was the one who said it plainly. If I wanted clarity instead of rumors, I should hire a private investigator. Facts are a kind of light, he told me. Paper and proof keep panic from running the room. I sat across from him with the trust folder between us and felt the fatigue of guessing. He slid a card across the desk. Rebecca Chen, licensed and discreet. I put the card in my wallet and walked home through a city that suddenly felt full of doors. Rebecca chose a coffee shop 2 blocks from the courthouse. She was small, quick-eyed, and unadorned, the kind of person you forget seeing, which I assumed was her gift. She listened while I told her about the wedding, the kitchen door, the 2 a.m. calls. She took notes like a court reporter, no drama, just dates and names. What do you want to know? She asked. Enough to make a clean decision, I said. Their debts, their plans, the truth, whether I should ever hand them the box I brought home. She nodded, closed her notebook, and said she would be in touch. A week later, she called. The report was ready. Her office was spare, a metal fan humming, file boxes along one wall. She set a binder on the table and opened to a neat index. Highlights first, she said, and I braced my hands on the chair as if a wave were coming. Credit cards, balances near the limit on 3 accounts, late fees, interest rates that made my stomach clench. Student loans, Ethan's principal barely moving. Income-based payments keeping default at bay while chaining the future. Auto loan, Melissa traded up to a luxury SUV 6 months ago, Payments high enough to cover a year of groceries. Buy now, pay later accounts. Clothing, home goods, electronics. 6 open lines, all active. A honeymoon package booked on credit. A store card tied to handbags with minimums that never touch the principal. She slid photos across the table. Melissa in a boutique holding a purse like a trophy. Date stamp visible. The bag's price listed on the store's public site. Ethan outside a financial planner's office. The window signage promised retirement strategy. They asked about timelines of inheritance, Rebecca said. The receptionist did not disclose details. She only confirmed the subject when I posed as a prospective client. She turned another page. They also inquired about establishing power of attorney for an elderly parent. The planner referred them to an attorney. I felt heat rise, then drain. There is more, she said. They hired someone too. She pushed a second business card toward me. Jake Morrison, licensed, small shop. He has been asking around your building. He followed you to Delgado's office and to a title company where you signed packets. He could not access sealed records, but he photographed you leaving with a branded envelope. She rotated a photo toward me. My face, tired and set, held the envelope like a lifeline. He also staked out your bank 2 mornings. No breach, only observation. He is looking for a story he can sell to them. Rebecca tapped a page with highlighted posts. Public social media, Melissa writing about leveling up and family backing, Ethan replying with a key emoji and a muscle arm. None of it illegal, all of it revealing. I turned back to the debt totals. The numbers marched like soldiers who never sleep. Rebecca let the fan hum fill the space. You are not their plan, she said gently. You are their bailout. The sentence landed with the steady weight of a verdict. I thought of Harold's chair, the winter fever, Ethan's small hand clinging to mine. I thought of the white box on my shelf with its silver ribbon, patience tied into a bow. I had wanted gratitude to bloom when they saw what I prepared. Now I saw a different garden, one where needs swallowed whatever touched it, where gifts were not bridges, but bait. Rebecca closed the binder. You hired me for the truth, she said. I am sorry it hurts. I nodded. What do I owe you? She named a number I could easily afford now, and for a heartbeat I felt shame at how easy it was. I paid. She gave me a receipt. We shook hands. Outside, the afternoon was bright and ordinary. I carried the binder in a plain tote and blended into the sidewalk. At my building, I climbed the stairs slowly and let myself in. The apartment smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old books. I set the binder beside the white box and stood between them for a long time. The phone lit with a new message. Ethan, a cheerful line about a brunch photo he had posted. A link, a heart. Not a word about the wedding. Not a word about me. I powered the phone off and placed it face down. I ran my hand over the lid of the box. I see you, I told myself. I see what they see. 2. It was the first time the sentence did not feel like betrayal. It felt like waking. Paper had given me power. Proof had given me permission. I poured tea and sat in Harold's chair. The ribbon flashed in a bar of late light. A bright, thin boundary that finally held. The call came mid-morning, while a square of sun warmed the rug and the white box sat on the shelf like a small moon. Melissa's name filled the screen. I let it ring to the last possible second, then answered. Her voice arrived sugared and bright, the kind of sweetness that coats a blade. Vivian, hi. I was worried. Yesterday was so hectic. I think there was a misunderstanding. The photographer was rushing us, and the lighting by the entrance was terrible. When I said kitchen door, I meant closer to the kitchen corridor. Composition, you know. I am so sorry if that came out wrong. We would love to see you at the gift opening today. Noon works for everyone. Can you make it? She did not stop for breath. Apology by weather report. Blame assigned to light and logistics. My eyes went to Harold's chair, then to the ribbon glinting on the box. I heard Rebecca's dry voice in my head. You are not their plan. You are their bailout. I held the phone away for a heartbeat and let silence settle between us. Silence has a shape when you allow it. On the other end, she rushed to fill it. I know you must have been tired. Weddings are a lot for anyone. I totally get that. Ethan was so worried when you left. He said you didn't even have cake. He hates when people leave without cake. Anyway, everyone's coming over at noon. His boss might stop by. It would mean so much to have you there. Bring your box. We can put all the gifts by the fireplace for a cute picture. I ordered balloons. A cute picture. A fireplace backdrop. The box as a prop. I let 3 more seconds pass. I counted them in my head, the way I used to count Ethan's breaths when he slept with a fever, my palm on his hair, waiting for the next rise. No, I said. There was a small click in the line. Not mechanical, human. I am sorry, what? No, I repeated, gentle as setting down a cup. Is this because of yesterday? Vivian, I said I'm sorry. I was just trying to organize the flow. The kitchen corridor was closer to the photographer. It wasn't about age. Goodness, no. You're beautiful. Everyone said so. Please don't take it personally. Apology cushioned with a compliment that wasn't one. I thought of the binder in my tote, of balances and minimum payments and handbags glowing under boutique lights. I pictured Ethan outside a planner's glass door, the key emoji in his public reply. Melissa shifted tactics. If noon is hard, we can do 2, or we can swing by and pick up your gift so you don't have to carry anything heavy. We can have our driver stop at your building, whatever is easiest for you. I want this to feel easy. I looked at the box. It did not look heavy, but it held the weight of my years. Today will not work, I said. Tomorrow then. We can do brunch. Actually, the registry says there are still some kitchen items open. I know you picked something already, but if you wanted to exchange your gift or add a little card with details, that would be totally fine. People do that all the time, exchange. Add details. I had learned the language of fishing. I pictured handing a trout my own net. No, I said again, and I ended the call. I set the phone face down. The apartment breathed. After a minute, it buzzed once, then again, then in a pattern that sounded like pleading made digital. I left it on the table and cut a square of Ruth's cornbread, spread it with honey, and stood at the sink. Outside, a bus sighed. Somewhere, a door shut with a soft thud. Everyday sounds, sized exactly for sanity. When I checked the screen, the messages stacked in alternating fonts. From Melissa, so worried. Please confirm you are safe. From Ethan, love you. Call when you can. From an unknown number, hi, sweetie. This is Melissa's mom. We are concerned. Family needs to stick together. From Melissa again, posting a pic from the reception. Family is everything. Hope you love it. A heart, a key, a camera icon. I opened her post. 3 photos slid by. Melissa laughing with bridesmaids. Ethan cutting the cake. A group shot by the entrance, where a gap yawned exactly where a mother might stand. The caption read, like a performance. I closed the app and washed my hands as if I could scrub it off. The phone rang once more. I answered because I wanted the choice to be mine. Melissa's voice had cooled by a degree. I just need to know what to tell people. You left. It looked bad. Ethan's boss asked why his mother disappeared before speeches. Can you at least say you felt faint? A migraine? Something graceful? I am trying to manage optics. Optics. The word settled in my stomach like a stone. You can tell the truth, I said. What truth would that be? That you asked me to sit by the kitchen door. She made a sound like a laugh cut short. No one will believe that. Why would I say that? It makes me sound cruel. It does. Her voice thinned. Vivian, this is getting dramatic. I am trying to do the right thing here. I am trying to include you. You are trying to retrieve what you think I have, I said, and surprised myself with how calm it sounded. She inhaled sharply. What is that supposed to mean? Goodbye, Melissa. I set the phone down and let it ring to voicemail. Messages came in with new angles. Offers to send a car. Questions about my address. About the building's access. About whether the concierge would accept deliveries. Triangulation arrived next. Ruth texted to say Melissa had reached out, worried, asking if I was ill. I told Ruth I was fine and asked her to save her breath for the people who could hear it. Afternoon softened toward evening. I brewed tea and moved Harold's chair to catch the light. I considered what a real apology sounds like. It names the harm. It does not explain it away. It asks nothing in return. What I had heard was not apology. It was a keyhole search for access. Near sunset, Ethan texted a photo of us from years ago at a school fair. His face paint-smeared, my hair windblown. Remember this. Wish you had stayed last night. Melissa says you misunderstood. Can we reset? I typed and erased 3 replies, then set the phone down without sending any. Not to punish, to keep the line clean until a real conversation was possible. By nightfall, the buzzing slowed. I placed the phone in a drawer and closed it gently. The white box held steady on the shelf. Its ribbon, a thin horizon of silver. I sat, lifted my mug, and felt the quiet return to size the room around me. My number had been small. It had also been complete. The storm arrived by phone, not sky. I was rinsing a cup when the ringtone clawed across the counter. Melissa's name flashed, then the sound of crying hit my ear the moment I answered. Words tumbled so fast they tangled. Vivian, thank God you picked up. Ethan collapsed at the office. They took him by ambulance. He is at Springfield General. Please come now. For a second, the old reflex fired, the one that sends a mother running before thought can form. I gripped the edge of the sink until my hand steadied. Which entrance? I asked. Emergency or main? Emergency, she sobbed. They are doing tests. It looks bad. He asked for you. Please. I felt the weight of Harold's chair behind me like a hand between my shoulder blades, pressing me back to center. I am going to call the hospital, I said. I will see what they need. Just come, she pleaded. There is no time to explain. There is time to ask for a name, I said, and ended the call. I dried my hands and opened my little notebook to the page where I keep important numbers. The hospital switchboard answered on the 3rd ring, a calm woman with a headset voice. Springfield General, how may I direct your call? I am looking for a patient, I said. Ethan Clark. Admitted to the emergency department a few minutes ago. Let me check, she said. Keys tapped softly. One moment. The moment stretched. I watched sunlight slide across the silver ribbon on the white box. It glowed, the way a horizon line does when you decide to keep walking. I am not seeing an Ethan Clark, she said. He may be in triage without registration. Do you have a date of birth? I gave her the date. More tapping. Nothing under that name or date of birth, she said. I can check incoming transfers. One moment. My thumb left a damp print on the counter. I stared at the place where it evaporated. A siren sounded somewhere far away. It did not turn toward me. No current transfers for that name, she said. If he arrives, the system will update. Thank you, I said. Would anyone know if a patient came in as unidentified? We would not share that information, she said, professional and kind. But if you call back in 30 minutes, I can check again. I appreciate your help, I said, and ended the call. The kettle clicked on without my remembering to push the switch. I turned it off and stood very still. The phone jumped again in my hand. Melissa. I answered and let silence arrive first. Where are you? She said. Are you in a cab? The doctor needs family consent. I called the hospital, I said. They have no record of Ethan. He must have been transferred, she said quickly. They probably took him to county. Or maybe he left against medical advice. He does that sometimes. He hates doctors. Ambulances do not take patients to one hospital and then send them to another without paperwork, I said. My voice sounded like a room with the windows open. Which unit is he in? She swallowed, and I heard the small sound of a lie learning to walk. Maybe it was Mercy, she said. I was so upset. I got the names mixed up. I am at the car now. I can pick you up. Text me your exact address so I can send it to the driver. I do not give my address to people who cannot name a hospital, I said. Her tone shifted. The sobbing fell away. The request sharpened. Vivian, this is serious. Ethan needs you. Can you please cooperate for once? We do not have time for your suspicion. Asking questions is not suspicion, I said. It is love with its eyes open. Fine, she snapped, then softened the word with a breath. I will call you back when I get clarity. Just be ready to go. Keep your phone on. I placed my phone on the table and looked at it like it was a small, loud animal. Then I pressed the side button until the screen went dark. The room exhaled. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled. A door across the hall closed. Life kept its shape. I poured water into the kettle and clicked it on for real. While it heated, I thought about emergency rooms. I know their sounds. I know the beep of monitors and the rubber soles squeaking and the scent of hand sanitizer so strong it erases everything else. I sat in those sounds the night Harold died. I held his hand while the nurses moved with brisk mercy. That was crisis. It did not need a caption. It did not ask for an address before it told the truth. The kettle whistled. I poured, watched the tea spin in the cup, breathed the steam like it was medicine. The phone stayed dark. I set the cup on a saucer and carried it to Harold's chair. The cushion received me with its familiar sigh. Across from me, the white box rested on the shelf. The ribbon cut a clean line against the cardboard. Lines matter. They are how a map becomes a path. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I pictured Melissa pacing, inventing new versions, looking for the angle that would open what she wanted. I pictured Ethan at his desk, alive, and well, oblivious to the story told in his name. My heart ached for the boy he had been. My mind held the man he had become. Two truths in one chest. That is what mothering grows into if you live long enough. The phone chimed once as it booted back to life. Messages tumbled in. From Melissa, update coming, stay by your phone, do not turn it off. From an unknown number, this is Jake with a private ambulance service. We might need a family signature by proxy. Send your address. From Ethan, at last. Everything okay? Melissa said you are on your way. I stared at that line until the words lost shape. Then I typed one reply. Are you at work? He answered within a minute. Yes. Where else would I be? I set the phone down like it was hot. I felt something unclench low in my spine. I turned the phone off again, slower this time, not out of anger, but hygiene. Noise is a kind of dirt. It sticks to your thinking if you let it. I carried my cup to the window and stood between the light and the chair. Below, the street moved with a weekday certainty. A woman pushed a stroller. A man in a blue jacket lifted his coffee to his lips without looking up. The ordinary persisted. I let it. When the phone rang again, I did not answer. It rang 4 times, then 5, then stopped. A voicemail icon appeared and waited. I did not press play. I did not need to hear the next version. I already knew the genre. False alarm as fishing line, concern as key, urgency as mask. I sat back down and pulled my notebook close. On a fresh page, I wrote a small ledger. Under the word emergencies, I drew 2 columns. Real. Manufactured. Under real. I wrote Harold's last night, Ethan's fever at 8 years old, the time the landlord's pipe burst. Under manufactured, I wrote kitchen door, midnight calls, hospital story. Then I closed the notebook and felt the balance settle. I did not call Melissa back. I did not run to a place that did not exist. I did not spill the contents of my life to someone who will not say the name of a building without trying on another. I placed my cup on its saucer and let the quiet hold. My silence did not slam a door. It locked one. Boundaries do not shout. They click. Moving day began with the hush that comes before a storm. Only the storm was order and boxes and men in canvas gloves. The lobby smelled like lemon oil and new carpet. The concierge greeted me by name. He had practiced it, careful and warm. He slid a leather guest book toward the movers and handed me a small packet with building rules, a key fob, and a card that said, "Welcome home" in restrained type. I held the card a second longer than needed. Home is a word that can bruise. It can also mend. The freight elevator opened like a stage curtain. The movers wheeled in my small life. 2 suitcases, a crate of dishes, a box of books wrapped in brown paper, a lamp with a shade slightly dented from years of closets. The only piece of furniture I insisted they carry with both hands was Harold's old wooden chair. The foreman, a man with kind eyes and a tattoo of an anchor, asked if it was delicate. I said it was important. He nodded as if those were the same. We rode up. The elevator gave a soft bell. The doors parted to the private foyer and the double-glass doors of the penthouse. I unlocked them, and the ocean stepped in without moving. The light off the water found every surface and washed it clean. I stood for a moment, bare feet braced on cool stone, and felt the room greet me. Then the work began. They set boxes in the kitchen and stacked the books by the wall. The chair I asked them to place by the largest window, the one that looked east. It sat there like an altar. The anchor tattoo man watched my face when they put it down. He smiled when he saw my shoulders lower by an inch. "Good spot," he said. "Feels right." I tipped them well and thanked them for treating an old chair like a person. When the door closed behind them, silence spread its linen over everything. I moved slowly, not wanting to disturb the moment. I ran my palm over the stone counter, cool and smooth as riverbed. I opened the refrigerator, empty and humming. A clean slate. I checked the stove, the water pressure, the stackable washer that gleamed like a promise. I opened cabinets and found them freshly lined. In the hall closet, I placed the white gift box on the top shelf beside spare towels. I did not need to hide it. I needed to put it where it would watch without ruling. From the balcony, the wind brought the smell of salt and sun-warmed metal. Below, gulls wrote messy lines across the air. A tugboat worked past with a low horn that made the glass shiver. The ocean is honest. It tells you what is coming, and then it comes. I leaned against the rail and let the light anchor me. Inside, I made the bed with crisp sheets that still held the faint scent of the store. New sheets, new pillowcases, a new duvet folded into thirds like a hotel. In the bathroom, I lined 3 simple items on the vanity: toothbrush, comb, small jar of face cream. I cleared the counters of every extra thing. Clarity is my new luxury. I called the utility company and confirmed what Delgado had arranged. He had a way of arranging things, so they felt inevitable. I set up a delivery for a small grocery order: eggs, milk, tea, bread, butter, oranges, a bouquet of cheap daisies for the kitchen table, because I could. I told the concierge not to admit visitors without calling first, and not to accept packages from names I did not recognize. He wrote it down on a pad with real paper and a pen, not a screen. That, too, felt like respect. In the late afternoon, I unwrapped the books and stacked them along the wall in neat rows. Harold's chair watched me work. I picked one of his favorites, a dog-eared novel with a bookstore stamp from a city we once visited and could barely afford. I placed it on the sill by the chair so its spine faced the water. It felt like inviting him to see the view. When the groceries came, the delivery boy whistled under his breath at the windows. I tipped him more than I had budgeted, and he left grinning. The kind of grin that makes you love the future. I cracked 2 eggs into a pan and watched them bloom in butter. I ate standing at the counter, the kind of meal that tastes better than any restaurant when you know exactly what it cost you to get here. As dusk slid down the glass, I turned off the overhead lights and let the room go to blue. The city stitched itself with lamps. The ocean darkened to velvet. I carried my tea to Harold's chair and sat. The cushion gave its small sigh, and I felt the history of my body settle into it. On the shelf, the white box seemed to rest easier, no longer a bribe, now a boundary. I slept lightly on clean sheets in a room that did not remember sorrow. The night did not wake me with radiator complaints or sirens. The building breathed evenly, a big animal at peace. Before dawn, something drew me up. The horizon held a gray seam. Then it opened. Light rose like a patient hand. The glass warmed under my fingertips as the first stripe of gold found the floor and moved toward me. I carried my tea to the chair and sat facing east. The water received mourning the way a face receives forgiveness. I spoke aloud because Harold had always liked the truth plain. I used to think this would be Ethan's home, but it turns out it is mine. And for the first time, I feel worthy. The words did not echo. They landed and stayed. I let them. The sun climbed. The room filled. The chair held me as if it had been waiting for this exact angle of light. I looked at my hands and saw they were not empty. They held keys, paper, and choices. They held a life I had been writing in the margins. Now, the margins had become the page. A gull cried. Somewhere far below, a door opened and shut. I lifted my cup, tasted the day, and decided to begin. The call came just after sunrise, when the ocean was the color of pewter, and the city had not decided who it would be yet. I was in Harold's chair with my first cup of tea, watching a strip of gold crawl across the floor. The phone buzzed on the windowsill, his name filling the screen. I let it ring once, then twice. I answered because I wanted the choice to be mine. "Mom," Ethan said. His voice had the shape of someone bracing for a wave. "We know." About the penthouse. About the check. Was that meant for us? Were you going to give that to me and Melissa? I looked at the white box on the closet shelf across the room. Even from here, the silver ribbon held a straight line. "Yes," I said. "It was meant for you." It was my wedding gift, I heard him exhale, a sound that wanted to be relief and could not be. "So it is true," he said. "We thought maybe it was one of those rumors. Someone recognized your signature at the title office. Someone else saw you with a bank manager. Melissa said there was no way you would do something that big without telling us. I did not know what to believe I did," I said. "I believed I could make a bridge out of paper." The line went quiet. Then he tried again. "Why did you not give it to us? Why take it back? We did not do anything to deserve that." Across the glass the water shifted, slate to steel. I kept my voice level. "Your wife asked me to sit by the kitchen door for the photographs. She wanted the young faces in the frame. I stood up. I picked up the box. I left." He made a sound like a cut air pocket. "I did not see." "I swear I did not see. I know," I said. "That is part of the problem." He swallowed. "Mom, people say things at weddings they do not mean." It was hectic. She can be blunt. You know I would have stopped it if I had heard. I took a breath. "You were there." That is enough of the truth for me. Paper rustled on his end. Melissa and I talked all night. "We were stupid. We were caught up. We can fix this. If the issue is the photos, we can retake them. We can make it right. We can show you how much you mean to us. Showing me requires more than a camera," I said. He went quiet, then changed lanes. "How much did you win?" he asked, and sounded ashamed of the question as it crossed his lips. "I mean, not the exact number, just if you are safe." "People talk, Mom. The number in the rumor is large. Is that true?" "I am safe," I said. "That is the only number that matters to me." He cleared his throat. "We made some decisions that were not smart." The honeymoon was on a card. The car was a stretch. We thought a promotion was coming sooner. We thought we would refinance. It turns out the market is not as friendly as it looks on television. If you had given us the gift, we could have reset. We still can. If you decide to, I let the sea answer for a few heartbeats. The waves did not hurry. "I am done paying to reset other people's choices," I said. He flinched in the silence. I could hear it. "You are angry," he said. "I understand. We were wrong. I was wrong. I should have protected you. Please do not punish me for a moment I did not see." "This is not punishment," I said. "It is proportion. It is me matching the size of my gift to the size of the respect I received." He sniffed, and his words blurred. "Mom, do not do this. We can apologize. Melissa will apologize. She will say it to your face. She knows she crossed a line. I know the difference between apology and access, I said. He tried a softer corner. I miss you, he said. The way things used to be. You and me against the world. Remember the library fair, the pie bake sale. You taught me to lace my shoes on the church steps. I remember you waiting in the cold for my bus when I stayed late at practice. You were always there. Be there now. I closed my eyes and saw his small hand on my wrist in a hospital night, hot with fever. I remembered the weight of his head against my shoulder. Love is not a switch you throw. It is a house with many rooms. I chose the one with a lock. I am here, I said. I am in my home. I am not at the edge of a photograph. He inhaled sharply. If this is about money changing me, I will prove it has not. I will sign anything. I will put the house in your name. I will put conditions on the check. I will agree to whatever the lawyer says. We just need a chance. Please. You had one, I said. It came wrapped in white with a silver ribbon. You told it to wait by the kitchen door. He began to cry. The sound was not pretty. It was real. I do not know how to fix this, he said. You do, I said. Begin with truth. Name what happened. Ask for forgiveness without asking for a favor at the same time. Live a season where you do not treat me like a solution. Come to see me without needing a bank. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. Can I come today? Just me. No agenda. I want to look you in the eye. I want to say I am sorry without Melissa in the room. Not today, I said. I am still learning how it feels to have space. Tomorrow, he said, and I could hear the old boy in him, the one who used to bargain for 10 more minutes of play. Maybe, I said. When you want a relationship with me that does not begin with a spreadsheet, you will know how to knock. When you are ready, you know where I am. The line shook. Mom, he said, I love you. I love you, I said. That is why I am doing this. Can you tell me one thing? He asked. If I had seen it and stopped her, if I had put my arm around you right there and brought you to the front, would the box have stayed on the table? Yes, I said, and the truth sat between us like a rain barrel filling. It would have. He cried again, quieter, and I let the sound pass through the room and out the open window. I looked at the water and felt the steadiness of something that had no interest in explaining itself to the shore. Goodbye for now, Ethan, I said. Please do not hang up, he said. When you are ready, I said. You know where to find me. I ended the call and set the phone on the sill. The ocean kept moving. I wrapped both hands around my cup and felt the heat soak into my palms. I did not pace. I did not second guess. The white box on the shelf stopped being a test. It became a boundary that belonged to me. Outside, the light brightened. Inside, the room stayed calm. I took a sheet of good paper and the blue pen Harold liked because it never smudged. I sat at the kitchen table with the ocean breathing against the glass and began a letter I did not intend to send. Dear Ethan, I am writing while morning is still soft and the gulls argue on the rail. I want a few truths on a page where I can see them and where you might see them someday. When you were 8 and burning with fever, I folded a cool cloth and pressed it to your forehead, then to the back of your neck, then back to your forehead again. You said, without opening your eyes, Mom, don't leave me. I promised I would not. I kept that promise through hospital corridors and grocery lines and nights that would not end. For years I kept it. When rain drowned the sidewalks and buses ran late, we walked home together. You in rubber boots, me in old sneakers with soft soles. You named trucks. I named clouds. We counted between lightning and thunder. We made puddles into games because games let poor days pretend they are rich. I wrung your socks in the tub and dried them over the radiator. You fell asleep on my lap while I read a library book stamped discard and rescued anyway. After Harold died, truth bent but did not break. He sold his time to a job that took his breath. He gave us kindness each night he had any left. I sold his watch to pay your first semester deposit. I smiled at the pawnbroker because dignity costs less than shame. I worked holidays and took the shifts no one wanted. I learned to carry tiredness like a purse that matched every outfit. I made soup from almost nothing and chose produce by weight and price per ounce. I counted coins at counters where clerks looked past me toward people who moved faster. There is something I want you to know about the box with the silver ribbon. I wrapped it with steady hands. I imagined you lifting the lid, your mouth opening the way it did when you were small and discovered one more candle than you expected. I imagined Melissa going quiet. I imagined gratitude landing in the room like a bird that trusted us. I believed paper could be a bridge. I believed money could quiet the old hunger for respect. I believed we could speak to one another as people who remembered where we came from. At your wedding, when Melissa asked me to sit by the kitchen door so the photographs would look young and untroubled, I heard something break that had been cracking for years. I stood up, I took the box, and I walked away. I walked toward air I could breathe. That choice was not fury. It was a boundary. A boundary is not a wall. It is a door you lock until the other person learns where to knock. I am not writing to punish you. I am writing to draw a line around what has been real between us. I loved you through late notices, rusted mufflers, and a loneliness that borrowed my name. I loved you when you were careless with me, because children practice on their mothers the way pianists practice scales. They believe the music will be there no matter how hard they strike the keys. Love is not immunity. It is a tension with a spine. You asked on the phone if we could fix this. We can, but not with a retaken photograph or a quick apology meant to unlock a check. What breaks must be named. What is named must be carried. What is carried must change how we walk. If you want to try, arrive without an agenda and stay long enough to hear how silence sounds when it is chosen, not imposed. Sit with me at a table with no forms on it. Tell the truth. Do not manage optics. Practice care. I forgive more easily than I forget. Forgetting is how harm repeats in the same costume. I can sit with truth. I can also sit with you if you come as my son and not as a petitioner. I do not require perfect words. I require honest ones. Say, I did not see you, and I should have. Say, I put the picture before the person. Say, I wanted what you have more than I wanted who you are. Then stop. Let the room breathe. Let the ocean finish a sentence or two. We can meet in that quiet without price. Here is the last true thing for today. If one day you knock without ambition in your hands, I will open. If not, remember, there was once a white gift box waiting for you, and a mother who kept her love and kept her boundary too. Love. Mom. I folded the letter in even thirds the way Harold preferred, creases pressed flat with my thumb. I stood on a chair and slipped the envelope into the white box between the deed and the velvet sleeve. The lid settled with a quiet fit. The ribbon needed no adjustment. It already knew its job. I placed the box back on the shelf where morning could find it, and where I could too, when I needed to remember that mercy and limits can live in the same house. The concierge called first. "Miss Clark, your son and his wife are in the lobby. They're asking to come up." I looked at the video phone. 2 figures stood by the desk beneath the high ceiling. Melissa held a glossy bag. Ethan shifted from foot to foot. "Please tell them I'm not receiving visitors," I said. "If they leave something, keep it at the desk." I hung up and opened the balcony door. From 14 floors up, the harbor glinted. Gulls stitched the air. Below, they stepped to the curb and craned their necks toward my windows, as if they could see through glass and decisions. The wind lifted my hair, and I said the sentence I had practiced in the quiet. The door opens for respect, not for greed. They tried the intercom next. The buzzer sounded in my hallway, a small, mechanical plea. I watched the light blink and go still. I did not answer. When the elevator arrived on my floor by habit, its doors opened on an empty hall, a little pantomime of welcome. I let them close. My phone chimed. A text from Ethan. "Mom, we're downstairs. Please." Then another. "We want to apologize in person. We love you. 5 minutes." I set the phone face down and rested my palm on the deadbolt. Through the wood, I felt my pulse. Steady. I thought of the kitchen door at the reception, the way the world wanted me to become architecture. Not today. The concierge rang again. "They're asking nicely," he said. "They say they only want to talk." "I know," I answered. "Offer them water. If they wait, let them wait." I walked to Harold's chair and sat facing the entry, as if attendance could be an act of choice. Minutes lengthened. On the screen, I saw Ethan lean over the desk. Melissa placed the bag like bait. The lobby doors opened and closed for couriers and neighbors. A resident must have taken pity. The camera showed Ethan and Melissa slipping past on someone's invitation. My call box lit. The elevator rose. I stood and crossed to my door. On the inside mat, I straightened the corners with my foot. I heard their voices down the hall. Muted, urgent. They stopped outside. Ethan knocked. 3 soft taps he used to practice at Halloween. "Mom," he said through the wood. "It's me." Melissa's voice followed, bright. "Vivian, we only want 5 minutes. We brought something for you. We can leave it if you prefer." I touched the cool brass of the handle, but did not turn it. Between my fingers and the hall lived everything I had learned this year. I leaned my forehead to the frame and breathed once, twice. I could make this easy. I had made everything easy for so long the muscles remembered. I stepped back. "Please," Ethan said. The word landed heavy, then rolled under the door and lay at my feet, looking up. I picked nothing up. "Not today," I said, voice calm as a closed book. "When you are ready to visit me without an agenda, you'll know how to knock." There was a pause in which I felt him recognize the sentence as a map. Melissa tried again. "We have a plan to make this right. We can retake photos, do a family dinner, show everyone." I pressed the latch just enough to make the mechanism click, the softest sound a lock can make. "Stop managing optics," I said through the door. "Start telling the truth." Then I stepped away. We stood on either side of the line. Inside, the air of my life. Outside, their breath fogging the paint. Ethan's knuckles brushed the wood once, more touch than knock. "Okay," he said at last. and I heard the boy learning to stand up in the man. Their footsteps receded. The elevator chimed. Doors opened. A small wind ran down the hallway and lifted the edge of my runner. I set it straight, gently. I went back to the balcony. They reappeared on the sidewalk, smaller now, faces turned up and then away. The glossy bag swung from Melissa's wrist. She set it on a bench and left it there like a thought she did not want to carry. The harbor kept glinting as if nothing had happened, and exactly what had happened had. Inside, I wrote one line in my notebook. Today, I kept the threshold. I slid the book beneath the white box on the closet shelf so the words could rest under the ribbon. Then I stood in the doorway to the balcony, 1 foot on stone, 1 on wood, and felt the frame hold. A home is 1,000 choices disguised as hinges and latches. I closed the glass gently, and the click sounded like a sentence done. Evening settled. The glass went from bright to blue. The water outside became a single sheet. I boiled water and set out the cup I save for nights when the ache under the ribs wants company. Tea is a small ritual. Heat and leaves and patience. It gives the hands something kind to do. I carried the mug to Harold's chair and faced the window. My reflection floated there. A woman in a good room who could still feel empty at the edges. Loneliness does not shout. It taps once, then waits. I felt it tap. It did not ask me to call anyone. It did not ask me to move. It only touched the back of my hand with one cool finger. I thought of the boy who asked for one more story. I thought of the man he became, practiced in ambition and clumsy with care. The white gift box on the shelf kept its silver line like a horizon. The intercom buzzed. Ruth's face appeared with 2 women at her side. She waved. One carried a grocery tote. The other held a covered dish. I pressed the button. "Come up," I said. When they reached my door, the hall smelled like garlic and butter. Ruth kissed my cheek as if the last 40 years were a single afternoon. "We brought reinforcements," she said. "This is Alma. This is Joe." Partners in mischief. Alma's eyes were kind. Joe stood like a retired teacher. We stepped into the kitchen, and the 3 of them moved like a practiced trio, opening drawers without asking, finding bowls as if they had lived here for years. Ruth handed me a knife. "Slice these tomatoes," she said. Thick, not shy. Alma melted butter with chopped onions. Joe rinsed lettuce and snapped it into a bowl. I smiled at the sound of their work. The click of gas, the thud of a spoon against the pot. Ruth pressed bread in a pan until cheese surrendered. Alma stirred the soup until it went from thin to velvet. Joe sliced peaches and sprinkled them with sugar and lemon. "Dessert," she said. "We honor the fruit before it forgets it is summer." We ate at the island under the pendant lights. Tomato soup in wide bowls, grilled cheese crisp at the edges, a salad that tasted like gardens, carry hope. Ruth raised her water. "To Vivian," she said, "who learned to say no and make it sound like music." I felt my face heat. "To friends," I said, "who show up with dinner and fix the shape of a room." They told stories. I let my spine uncoil. Alma's husband had been a mechanic who could fix anything except time. She wore his ring on a chain. Joe kept a classroom running on grace and a whistle. Ruth confessed she once scandalized the church committee by letting the bake sale take cards. Mercy should not require exact change. We laughed. The sound polished the air. After plates were empty, Joe looked at me with the kind attention older women give when they measure the weather in your eyes. "You have done a hard thing," she said. Hard does not mean wrong. Hard often means correct. Alma nodded. Kindness without offense invites goats, she said, and Ruth almost spit her water. We washed dishes. I wiped while they rinsed. Hands working side by side can say what mouths fear. Alma dried the last bowl and leaned on the counter. You know this, she said, but it helps to hear it. Family can be the people who learned your laugh instead of the people who share your nose. I looked at the three of them, sleeves pushed up, hair loose, faces lit by usefulness. The ache stepped back. Stay for tea, I said. We carried cups to the living room and faced the windows. Night lay on the ocean like a quilt. Small lights winked along the shore. Ruth tucked her feet under like a teenager. We should name this, she said. This hour of women in a high room telling the truth. Make it a habit. Joe nodded. Thursday vigils, she said. Alma grinned. With grilled cheese. I told them about the letter I wrote and hid in the white box. Ruth asked to hold it. I set it between us. She touched the ribbon like a violinist testing a string. This is not a weapon, she said. It is a bell. Ring it only when respect enters. They left around 10, promising to text when they reached their quiet houses. The door clicked. The apartment listened. I stood at the balcony with the glass open and the screen closed. Below, someone laughed. The night carried it up like a gift. I whispered, family is the people who keep you whole. I felt the house hold me upright. I let it. Gratitude arrived quiet and solid. I made room for it. I was not waiting for a call. I was answered by presence. The windows became mirrors. My reflection did not look lonely anymore. It looked accompanied. I washed the mugs and set them to dry. I wrote one line in my notebook. Chosen family came to dinner. The room remembered. Then I went to Harold's chair and sat. The cushion sighed. I sighed back. The sea kept its counsel. My heart matched it, beat for beat. I woke before sunrise with a sentence already formed, as if the ocean had written it on my ribs during the night. My pain will not just pay for them. It will become a shelter for others. I brewed tea, set the white box on the table like a witness, and called Delgado when the clock reached a decent hour. He listened without interrupting, then said what he always says when the heart outruns the hands. Come in. We will make the feeling into paper. His conference room smelled faintly of toner and lemon oil. Delgado had already stacked folders along the edge of the table, tabs marching in a sensible rainbow. He slid a legal pad toward me. Name it, he said. I wrote Harbor Light Fund because light and safety and a way in from rough water felt right in my mouth. He nodded. Mission. I said it slowly so we could hear its bones. Emergency support and legal advocacy for older women experiencing financial exploitation by family or caretakers. He crossed out caretakers and wrote caregivers. Less clinical, he said. We mapped programs with a blunt pencil, microgrants for rent, and utilities when an adult child drains a parent's account. A clinic day each month where pro bono lawyers help unwind predatory signatures. Workshops on durable power of attorney, beneficiary designations, and how to say no without apology. A tiny helpline that forwards to trained volunteers during business hours. Partnerships with shelters and churches that trust the women who walk through their doors carrying grocery bags full of receipts and shame. Bored, Delgado said. 3 at minimum. I smiled. Ruth, Alma, and Joe. He grinned like he already knew. Good choices. They will tell you the truth. We drafted bylaws with plain language, term limits, conflict of interest rules, a requirement that at least half of all grants go out within 90 days, so the fund never forgets its purpose. He ordered an EIN while I read the articles of incorporation aloud. Saying the words turned them real. Then the choreography of signatures began. Pages slid, pens scratched. Delgado's notary stamped each document with a silver seal that caught the light. "Paper is power," he said, "but only when it moves." We opened the operating account at the credit union across the street. The branch manager shook my hand and printed a temporary checkbook. Back in the conference room, I wrote the first check to Harbor Light Fund Endowment in an amount that felt serious and still left me room to breathe. The numbers looked clean on the line. Delgado watched my face. "How does it feel?" I said, "Like putting a roof on a house that has been waiting." We composed a one-page grant application that fit on a clipboard. Name. Situation in your own words. Immediate need. A box to check if a family member is pressuring you. A promise that we would call within 48 hours. No essays, no hoops. Dignity moves faster when the form is short. Delgado called 2 friends who run clinics. They agreed to take our referrals on Wednesdays. I emailed the pastor who organized the meal train when Harold died. He offered a room in the church basement and a percolator that never quits. Ruth texted to say she and Alma would price out a basic website, and Joe would design a flyer that did not look like a cry for help, but an invitation to steadiness. We gathered around the final packet. Delgado tapped the signature line with his pen. I signed my full name in the same hand I used to sign permission slips and rent checks. He countersigned as a registered agent. The notary pressed the seal with 2 firm hands. The sound was quiet and decisive. "There," Delgado said. "Now your intentions have a spine." I held the stamped articles and felt the weight of them. "My pain will not just pay for them," I said again, this time to the room and to myself. "It will become a shelter for others." Delgado's mouth softened. "That is the best use of winning I have heard in a long time." On the way home, I stopped at a print shop and ordered a small plaque for my desk. Harbor Light Fund, Paperwork Justice, Quiet Help. The clerk asked if it was a law firm. "Not exactly," I said. "More like a warm roof." Back at the penthouse, I placed a copy of the filed documents in a fresh folder and slid it into the closet beside the white box. Not to hide it, to keep mission next to memory. I texted the 3 women. "We are official. Thursday vigils now include board meetings. Bring grilled cheese." Ruth replied with a trumpet emoji she barely knows how to use. Alma sent a photo of peaches. Joe wrote, "Minutes will be short and merciful." I opened the balcony door and let wind spill across the table. The harbor flashed. Somewhere, a tugboat sounded its horn. I rested my hand on the folder and felt the world tilt a fraction toward right. A life can turn quietly when you put your name on the line that matters. Ruth arrived first with a tote bag of groceries and a bottle wrapped in brown paper. Alma and Joe followed with a casserole dish and a small tin that rattled like it held cookies. I had set the dining table with linen and the china I almost never touch, then paused and carried out Harold's old tea set. The porcelain was thin at the lip and traced with a fading blue pattern. On this glossy table under a high ceiling, the cups looked like survivors sitting in front row seats. I placed the teapot in the center, as if it deserved the spotlight. "Board meeting," Ruth said, grinning, "featuring dinner and strong opinions. Minutes will be short and merciful. Joe answered, already slipping into a chair with the ease of someone who has earned many evenings of belonging. Alma lifted the lid from the casserole. Steam rose, smelling like home and butter. We ate first, because thinking is kinder on a full stomach. Casserole, green salad, peaches sliced into a glass bowl, bread with a crust that sang when you cut it. After the plates were cleared, I set the tea set on a tray and poured. The glaze caught the light from the windows. Ruth watched my hands. Harold would like this, she said. Simple and precise. I almost left it in the cabinet forever, I said. But I wanted something old to sit comfortably in the new. The cups chimed lightly against the saucers. For a moment, I heard our younger voices in the sound. We opened the folder for Harbor Light Fund. I passed around the stamped articles and the first check ledger. Alma had mocked up a simple one-page website on her tablet. The banner read, Harbor Light Fund, with a small lighthouse sketch Joe had drawn on a yellow sticky note and scanned. Ruth tapped a section titled, Call Us, and smiled. Not a portal, she said. A phone number that rings where a human answers. We read the draft flyer aloud. Quiet help for older women facing financial pressure from family. Micro grants. Legal clinics. A helpline staffed by people who listen. Jo marked a word with her pencil. Replace pressure with coercion, she said. Name what it is. We voted. 3 fingers raised and then mine. A little parliament of women who have carried lives in bags. When the business was done, we let the room exhale. Alma reached for a cookie and told a story about her husband sneaking tea into the movie theater in a thermos because snacks were too expensive. Ruth recalled the day she marched into a bank to close an account that charged her mother a fee every time she breathed. Jo confessed she once practiced saying no in the mirror so it would fit her mouth when she needed it. I looked at their faces and felt the weight inside my chest shift toward lightness. Years ago, I believed I would spend this part of my life shrinking into the corners of uneventful rooms. Now 3 women were using my table as a launch site. The ocean beyond the glass kept its steady conversation with the shore. The city lit its lamps, and the penthouse gathered warmth like a hearth. I refilled the cups. The teapot poured with a slight wobble, the way it always had. I used to think I would die in silence, I said. But it turns out, silence can be a beginning. Ruth nodded, eyes wet the way they get when truth lands without fanfare. Alma reached across and squeezed my wrist. Jo raised her cup like a toast. We carried our tea to the balcony and stood behind the glass because the wind had teeth. Lights flickered along the harbor. A tugboat sounded a long, low note that vibrated in our ribs. We will need more chairs, Ruth said, for the women who show up. I pictured them arriving with envelopes full of notices and a look that says they are braced for disbelief. I pictured the relief that spreads when someone believes the first time. Back inside, we rinsed dishes and stacked them to dry. Harold's cups made small porcelain clicks as they settled. Alma wiped the table and left it emptier than she found it, a kindness in cloth. Jo taped the draft flyer to the refrigerator. A good idea belongs where the milk lives, she said. We laughed, and the room seemed to take a deeper breath. At the door, Ruth hugged me hard enough to steady my bones. Your house holds, she said. Alma pressed the cookie tin into my hands for tomorrow. Jo promised to email minutes that read like a poem. After the elevator closed, I stood quiet with the tray in my hands, listening to the building breathe. I washed the cups and dried them, and set them on the shelf at eye level. The blue pattern looked less faded under this light. In the closet, the white box waited with its ribbon true. I did not feel haunted by it. I felt accompanied by what it had taught me. I turned off the kitchen light and let the room glow with what remained. My life did not get louder tonight. It got deeper. The sky goes copper at the edges and deepens toward wine. I carry my tea to the balcony and feel the wind lift a strand of hair, the harbor breathing like a calm animal below. The glass door slides easily. This home knows how to open and how to hold. I rest my forearms on the railing, and the heat of the cup warms the place where my pulse lives. Lights come on along the shore, one window at a time, as if the city is remembering its gentleness. Behind me, Harold's chair waits in its spot, facing east for mornings and west for evenings, a faithful hinge between what was and what is. On the closet shelf, the white box sits beside the new folder for Harbor Light Fund, memory and mission, shoulder to shoulder. I think of the women we will meet, hands full of letters and late fees, eyes full of apology for things that were never their fault. Paperwork justice will meet them at a table, and a kettle will be on. My phone begins to ring from the kitchen. The sound carries like a pebble thrown across water. I do not move. A gull scribbles a lazy figure 8. A tugboat hums its low note. The light leans more gold than red. The ring stops, then starts again. I lift the cup and watch steam move like a blessing. The calls can circle the room if they need to. I am not a destination tonight. I speak a sentence out loud because saying it has taught me how to live inside it. Sometimes the greatest victory for a woman, after a lifetime of being overlooked, is not to shout. It is to say no. The words do not harden the air. They soften it, the way a good stitch draws a torn seam together. I feel the truth settle where fear used to sit. The phone rings a third time and falls to silence. I picture Ethan finding his own door, the right one, the one that opens without a transaction. I picture Melissa learning the difference between optics and care. The horizon takes the sun and keeps the glow. I set the cup on the small table by the chaise and lay my palm lightly on its rim. The camera would stop here if there were a camera. A steady hand on an ordinary cup. Proof that peace is not theatrical. Behind the glass, the apartment holds its shape with lamps low and counters clear. Harold's cups dry on the rack, blue pattern catching the last light. On the fridge, Joe's flyer waits for attack. On the notepad, a list for tomorrow's calls. My life no longer leans outward for permission. It stands on its own feet and lets kindness choose its direction. I slide the balcony door until it meets the frame and leave it just shy of the latch. A door ajar is a boundary and an invitation. It trusts the weather and remembers the wind. I have room for both. The harbor darkens to ink. The first stars insist on being seen. I lift my tea again, sip, and let the warmth write a small, faithful line through me. Before we say goodbye, we would love to know where you are watching from. Is it a quiet morning with a warm cup of coffee, or a late night where stories like this keep you company? Tell us in the comments. We read every note with gratitude. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing to the channel and tapping the bell. Not only to hear more stories like this, but to be part of a community that believes in kindness, healing, and second chances. If you have lived through anything similar, share a line of your story. Your courage helps another woman breathe easier today. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Wherever you are, we hope you carry this story with you and remember this truth. Sometimes the miracle does not knock on your door. It waits quietly until you are ready to open your heart. Take care, and we will see you in the next story.